Why do children sometimes fail tasks that seem obvious to adults, and yet solve them perfectly a few years later? Jean Piaget's answer was not simply that children know less. His deeper claim was that children often think in fundamentally different ways at different points in development. That idea became the foundation of one of the most influential theories in psychology and education, Piaget's theory of cognitive development. At its core, Piaget's theory proposes that cognitive development is not just the accumulation of information. In other words, development is not only about learning more facts over time. Piaget argued that as children grow, the very structure of their thinking changes. Their way of organizing experience, solving problems, understanding cause and effect, and interpreting the world becomes increasingly complex through a sequence of developmental transformations. A useful way to understand Piaget is to begin with his central question: how does knowledge grow? Piaget was interested in how human beings move from simple interactions with the world to more advanced forms of reasoning. He did not treat children as incomplete adults. Instead, he treated them as active thinkers who build knowledge through interaction, experimentation, and adaptation. In that sense, Piaget helped establish a modern scientific view of the child as a constructor of understanding, not just a passive receiver of information. Piaget believed that children develop cognitively through organized patterns of thinking that he called structures, often discussed in modern teaching as schemas. These structures help children interpret what they see and experience. When new information fits their current way of understanding, they can incorporate it relatively easily. When it does not fit, they must adjust their thinking. This general process of adaptation is one of the key engines of development in Piaget's model and becomes much clearer when studying concepts like assimilation and accommodation in detail. Another major feature of Piaget's theory is that development follows a sequence of stages. These stages are not simply age labels or school levels. They represent qualitatively different modes of thinking. Piaget argued that children in one stage are not merely slower versions of older children. They often approach reality using different cognitive tools. This is why a task that appears simple to an adult may be genuinely difficult for a child whose current stage does not yet support the required operation or perspective. In Piaget's framework, development is also active and constructive. Children learn by acting on the world, observing outcomes, repeating behaviors, making errors, and gradually reorganizing their understanding. This is one reason Piaget's work became so influential in education. His theory encouraged teachers and researchers to pay attention not only to what children answer, but to how they reason. A wrong answer, from a Piagetian perspective, can reveal a coherent stage-specific way of thinking rather than mere confusion. Historically, Piaget's work emerged in the early 20th century, during a period when psychology was trying to become more systematic and scientific. He was trained in biology and deeply interested in the development of knowledge, which helped shape his interdisciplinary perspective. His project was not only psychological but also epistemological, meaning that he wanted to understand how knowledge itself is formed. This broader goal is one reason his theory still appears in psychology, education, and cognitive development courses around the world. Piaget's influence became especially strong because he offered something rare: a full developmental framework that connected observation, theory, and testable tasks. Instead of only describing children's behavior, he proposed an organized account of how reasoning develops across time. Concepts such as object permanence, egocentrism, conservation, and formal reasoning became central reference points in developmental psychology, even for researchers who later disagreed with parts of his model. At the same time, Piaget's theory has important criticisms, and these criticisms are part of why he remains relevant. Many researchers argue that Piaget sometimes underestimated children's abilities, especially when tasks were phrased in ways that created extra memory or language demands. Others argue that social interaction, culture, and instruction play a larger role in cognitive development than Piaget initially emphasized, which is one reason comparisons with Vygotsky are so common in university courses. Modern developmental psychology also benefits from methods that Piaget did not have, including more refined experimental designs and neuroscience tools. These newer approaches have revised, refined, and sometimes challenged Piaget's stage claims. However, even when contemporary research moves beyond Piaget, it often does so by responding to the questions he helped define. In that sense, Piaget is not only a historical figure in psychology, but a foundational reference point in the ongoing study of how human thinking develops. So what is Piaget's theory of cognitive development in one clear sentence? It is the theory that children actively construct knowledge and that their thinking develops through structured qualitative changes over time, rather than through simple accumulation of information alone. That idea continues to shape how psychology understands learning, development, and the nature of human intelligence. If we read Piaget carefully today, the most useful question is not whether every original claim was exactly correct, but what his framework still helps us see. Piaget reminds us that learning is not just about storing information. It is about transforming the way we organize reality, and that insight remains one of the most important ideas in developmental psychology.